Hello, welcome back to the show, World War II Books Where to Start. I'm your host, Joseph Conrad, aboard my yawl, the Nellie, sitting here in the Thames estuary waiting for the tide to turn so I can take my weekend trip to France. But in the meantime, being a serious British author, I'd like to tell you a story about telling stories. We do some novels today. World War II fiction is not my strong point. I'm just kind of dabbling in it here and there. As I've mentioned before, just dipping my toes in the water because there's a lot of water. There's a hell of a lot of war fiction out there. And it has become a little bit more apropos these days, shall we say, as the young adult genre has taken off, and there's plenty of authors working in that field in the war too. We're going to take a slightly different tack today. We're going to cover a few different generations here and just see what we got here. So first off is going to be Leo Kessler's Mountain of Skulls from '77. Check that tiger tank exploding full bore on the cover there. Leo Kessler is one of the pen names of Charles Whiting, 1926 to 2007. Here we have the actual Charles Whiting, Hunters from the Sky. And he was prolific. I mean, seriously prolific. I was talking to Stephen King the other day, and he's like, man, that guy puts me to shame. I can't take a break and keep up with him. But he's got like 15, 20 different series in fiction, and he's got dozens of nonfiction. Also, the guy was glued to his typewriter morning, noon, and nights. It's incredible the output this guy had. And I don't think he was using ghostwriters either. He's a kind of a pulp writer. He could turn these things out fiction-wise really quick. So Mountain of Skulls is part of one of his series, the Cossacks. I think this is book 3 or 4 in that series. It's the only one I have. And it's, as I said, pulpy style. It's got the 70s campy fiction style writing for war stuff. It's just like a piece of candy. You may forget about it as soon as you eat it, but it's interesting. You can find anything you want in the war regarding a novel or a fiction idea you like to have. This guy had a broad range, so maybe worth checking out. Up next, Into the Storm by Taylor Anderson from the great state of Texas. This is from 2008. This is the start of his series, a very long series, 14 books plus, I believe. And he's got an auxiliary series going on with us too, called The Artilleryman. It's going to be in the same universe. I say universe because this is his ambitious attempt. This is not just war fiction. This is parallel universe science fiction. Yep, you heard me. Ambitious in the extreme. He's going to mix the cadre of destroyer crew going through the famous mechanism of a giant storm to be transported to a different world. Writers have used this for 100 plus years now to get you to an alternate setting. And I love initial conditions. Absolutely. If you could put me in a weird situation where I don't know what's going on, I don't know where the story's going, pretty unfamiliar with base territory, I'm in for it. I'm good. I like that kind of stuff. I don't like to page one know where everything's going to happen. So in that, he sets up the story well. Ambitious because he's got not just a parallel world, but an alternate world where there's 2 sentient species plus refugees from Earth who have gone through storms, multi-generational time frames. And we've got the science fiction element of building a biodiverse habitat that is plausible. It's kind of dinosaurish, lizardish, prehistoric Earth, but with the development of 2 sentient species, and then throw humans in there too. Now that's where we're going to get to familiar storytelling, right? It's kind of like the old Clint Eastwood westerns where he walks into town. There's the one guy's on the side street, and there's the other guys on the side street. They're both trying to control the town. He's the gunslinger in the middle. Well, here's the destroyer men. They're going to be in the same situation, but they're going to side pretty quickly with the friendlies. And we have a good versus bad motif set up for the rest of the series. Can't argue with that. It's fine. It's traditional storytelling. Strengths here are just the ambitiousness of the project. The various characters in the crew are brought to life pretty well with distinct personalities. You got deck apes and whatever the Stokers were called. Can't remember the slang term. And then you have the officers, and you got the prominent NCOs. So it's got a lot going on in complexity and depth there. The cultures he sets up for the 2 sentient species, the baddies are really flat and one-dimensional. They're hungry all the time. They want to conquer the world. That's it. Got it right there. But then we're going to throw a monkey wrench into things, aren't we? Why, yes, we are, because we're going to have a Japanese ship that's been transported through the same storm at the same time. The battlecruiser Amagi. Yes, bad guys got bad guys with support. So, it's kind of like a James Bond villain has his henchmen. So, it's cool. They're painted to be evil as hell, right? And they're cooperating with bad guys because they're going to get back to the Emperor and win the war for Japan. Well, not so fast. It's going to take a few years. So you may be wondering, well, this is an oil-fired warship of the 20th century, and so is the Japanese cruiser or battle cruiser. So how are they going to get gas and munitions and whatnot? Don't worry about that. That's several novels in. He'll tell you how he pulls that off. So there's, the sleight of hand here is extreme. Taylor Anderson is a ballistics expert by profession and a history professor also. So he's got some background and chops to do this. It's not carried off with complete conviction at all times, but sometimes you just got to nod and wink and go with it. It's supposed to be fun and not Pulitzer Prize winning material. If there's a couple downfalls to this, it's the really god-awful flat love story that is played just lily white and clean as a sheet and very, very interesting and tedious to wade through, as well as some of his dialogue conventions are repetitious to the extreme. He has the annoying habit of using the word besides through virtually every character's mouth, and I mean the aliens too, over and over and over, relentlessly throughout the series. It's a bad writer's tick he's never been able to shake off. I don't know, maybe he just got to laugh about it and embraced it and said, to hell with it, I'm just going to run with it. But it's something that may not be prominent in the first novel, but it's going to stick out to you as it repeats itself endlessly throughout the rest of them. It's cool, it's fun. If there's another downside to it, he has to feature a battle royale close to the end of almost every book in the series as the denouement. And when I say battle royale, I really mean it. These things go on for days and days and 100 pages. Oof, it can be excessive and tedious and eye-watering at times. But it's fine. It's fiction. It's also kind of like a soap opera in the extreme length of the series. There's never ending story, right? So I recommend this as a fun, different kind of war fiction that'll have your brain spinning in a few different directions at one time. It's pretty cool. That's Into the Storm by Taylor Anderson. We'll finish up with March Violets today by Philip Kerr. Philip Kerr, this is from 1989. He was born in 1956 and passed away in 2018. Unfortunately, I wish he was still with us. This series is really cool. This is hard-boiled detective fiction through the German private eye / policeman's viewpoint in mid-30s Berlin. Bernie Gunther, archetype of all hard-bitten, hard-boiled private detective / policeman, right? Chain-smoking, womanizing, bitter, and cynical. Cool. It's a traditional setup. We'll run with it. And Bernie's pretty deep in that respect. He's a little bit deeper than your Sam Spades. Starting off the first novel in 36 with the Summer Olympics in Berlin. We're going to have a little bit of a potboiler mystery here. He's a private detective, former detective with Berlin police, got tossed out because of political differences. He was a traditionalist and didn't fit in with the Nazi regime. So he took an exit to become a private eye. And he gets hired to investigate the sudden death through the sudden murder of a famous tycoon's daughter and his son-in-law. Good enough, but it's going to get a little deeper. We got missing persons. We have pawnbrokers to deal with. We have the nightlife of Berlin and its seediness with gangsters and whatnot. And eventually, we're going to bring in Hermann Goering to be his next employer to get to the bottom of the mystery, right? Pretty cool. Complete with Lion Cub wandering around the room. Got to have that, the old Lindbergh reference. And eventually, we're really going to reveal the villain or the evilness of the regime. We're going to be hired by Reinhard Heydrich to finish up the mess. That's right. Good old Reinhard's going to enter the picture. So we got a lot going on here. It starts off as pretty deceptively simple. You think you know what's going to happen, and it gets deeper and deeper in the muck told first person, so you know he survives. That's a weakness of all first person narratives, right? You know the guy lives. Deal with that. It's just a staple of the genre. It can't be helped, I guess. And I really like it for what it is and what it isn't, because he's got like 13, 14 books in the series, and good old Bernie doesn't stand still in time. He takes him through his life cycle from 36 onwards to the post-war, Cold War, and all that. And I don't quite know at what year he ends up finally, so I haven't read them all. But I've gotten as far as Argentina and Cuba stuff in the late 50s. So it's pretty nice to see not a cartoon character being in the same situation over and over. This week I'm going to do this, and next week I'm going to do that, and in between there's 1,000 cigarettes. There's 1,000 cigarettes, but it's over decades. So it's a pretty cool life cycle for a character. I like it. Good attention to detail. As far as I know, there are 2 mistakes that I caught. He's got Hitler being elected rather than appointed, and I kind of understand that the populace might have just kind of blurred it all together. There were Reichstag elections after Hitler got in 1933, just to cement the Nazis' majority, and after that there were no more elections. So people may have muddled that in their minds, and you think you can get away with that one with no real heartache. But then he's also got the idea of a Knight's Cross being awarded in 1936. That award did not come into effect until 1940. So those are 2 minor blips. If you're really familiar with Berlin scene or with Weimar, you might know more about it and maybe spot some other mistakes. But I don't, so as far as I know, that's the only 2 I caught. It's pretty cool. I highly recommend this in the succeeding volumes. It does have a saviness to it, being what it is. He never steps outside the genre, and never, despite the depth that it has for a hard-boiled detective, it doesn't get any deeper than that. So take that for what it's worth. Take it for what it's worth. I give this really 3 or 4 stars. It's good times right here. And that'll wrap it up for novels today. I am Joseph Conrad. Drop Dead, serious British author. Although I was born in Poland. But hey, don't tell anybody that. That's strictly secret. Until next time, happy reading.